All right, so mental health. When one of those aspects of wellness is out of balance, either through too much or too little, or a traumatic or a difficult life event that might occur, your mental and physical health can be affected. Most of the time, you may be able to recognize an imbalance and make a correction. However, sometimes it can feel like these minor corrections are not enough. And other times, you may notice an imbalance due to like avoiding your thoughts or feelings and just trying to get through the day. So an imbalance in wellness can look like spending too much money, working too many hours, having a packed schedule with little time to rest or breathe, spending too little time on your spiritual needs, watching a lot of television that doesn't really stimulate any of your intellectual needs, drinking too much alcohol or drugs or medications to numb your feelings, and then I'll want to just kind of touch on what a traumatic or difficult life event might be. None of this is all inclusive. So if I don't list something, know that what SAMHSA defines as what's a traumatic experience is that you experience something, you experience it as traumatic, and it has lasting effects. So that leads it to be a very broad definition. So my short list probably won't cover everything. But some examples could be like a relationship ending, a car accident, death of a loved one or a pet, job loss, a new diagnosis or a medical trauma, frequent conflict, neglect, a family member's illness, homelessness or displacement, a house fire, experiencing discrimination or racism, living in poverty. And some people will be able to manage these experiences well with little long-term effects on their mental health. However, some people do need more support. And when we do not have our wellness needs met or have a traumatic life experience or both, we're more likely to develop mental health concerns like anxiety and depression, difficulty managing our anger, grief and loss, and compassion fatigue or burnout. So I'm just going to check the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. All right. So touching on a little bit of each of these common mental health conditions, so depression. So sadness is a completely normal human experience, and it can actually be useful to us to see the contrast from happiness or joy. So too much sadness is not helpful, though. It becomes debilitating, especially when sadness interferes with your daily functioning. And it can look different in everyone. But some of the signs to look for could include depressed mood, difficulty concentrating or focusing, irritability, crying spells, excessive guilt or hopelessness, eating too much or too little, and then also having thoughts that you'd rather not be alive anymore. Depression can manifest in physical sensations as well. So it's feeling fatigued, general malaise, headaches, and body aches. And then with anxiety is also a normal human experience in everyday life. For example, you need a little anxiety to help you get to work on time and to finish your school assignments. You need a little bit of anxiety to prepare you for what you have to do next that might be new, to then give you a little bit of motivation. You need anxiety to tell you that if you're out in the woods and you see something very large, that it could be a bear, and you probably should pay attention to that. So our anxiety can be very useful, but having too much anxiety is not helpful and becomes a problem when our anxiety interferes with daily functioning. And anxiety also can look different in everyone. Some of the signs to look for include, difficulty concentrating, feeling overwhelmed, irritability, being forgetful, angry outbursts even, overthinking, crying spells, feelings of guilt, intrusive thoughts, which are kind of like thoughts that like come in and you can't really control them. They're overwhelming and automatic. Feeling sad about feeling anxious, and then derealization, so feeling like reality isn't really real. Anxiety is also something that can be manifested physically because our brains and bodies are connected. So like headaches, body aches, feeling like you can't breathe, racing heart or heart palpitations, or shaky hands. Moving on to grief and loss. So our collective trauma has been a series of losses over this past year, and it's increased our sense of uncertainty in the world, in our country. So grief and loss does extend beyond death, and it can be like a loss of routines, work, of certainty, the ability to plan or do things that we normally could, faith in the common good or humanity, and other types of loss. I think that most of us can identify with a lot of those losses in the past year when we think back to everything that we've experienced. So when there is a loss, there is grief. And grief can be experienced as having body sensations or distress that's felt in the body. It can be thinking about the loss. It also can be just short-term difficulty in daily functioning, and which might be like skipping work, not doing housework, not taking showers, like a decline in hygiene, feelings of guilt because of how you're feeling. But that can also translate into feelings of anger, especially if your loss has been a loss in faith in humanity or faith in society, faith in the common good. It can turn to anger because we do have a lot of values that touches on. And most of us, I would say, probably experienced that in the past year. You may also experience common thoughts in your grief and grieving, like, I can't believe this happened. I don't understand. I should have been able to do something, or I could be doing more. And typically these thoughts are short term and easily dissipate as the healing happens, because our brains naturally heal. Just like our body, if we get a cut, it will naturally heal as well. So however, sometimes the brain has a harder time processing these things that happen to us, and the naturally healing processes of our brain get interrupted. So for those who experience these thoughts for a long time, accompanying with really intense feelings, it can lead to depression and anxiety. And everyone progresses through grief in their own way. But there are 4 tasks in grieving. And one is that you're accepting the reality of what has been lost. So for all of us, when the coronavirus happened last year, we were accepting the reality that we were on lockdown and we had to stay in our homes, except for very few instances. And then we were processing the pain of the loss, of adjusting to the world after the loss, and finding connection while we were going through that loss in different ways. So finding that connection also is likely happening now for some of us who are vaccinated, and hopefully everyone here is vaccinated. Just trying to figure out, like, how are we navigating everyday life after what's happened in the past year? How are we finding connection? How are we going about bringing back some of the things that we really enjoyed that prior to the pandemic? So those tasks can be experienced in any order, and they also can be happening simultaneously. Grief isn't really easy. It's not really pleasant to go through these things, but it is necessary. Avoiding our feelings that are connected to grief can lead to depression and anxiety. A lot of people try, like, say, well, I just don't want to feel my feelings. It's too intense. But really, our brain, we have to feel our feelings. Like, it's part of being a human is to have feelings. And it would be wonderful if we could turn those off and be robots sometimes, but that's not really how our brain is set up, to never feel feelings. So it's good to not avoid these feelings and really confront them and sit with them, acknowledge them, say what they are. Like, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling depressed, I'm grieving. If we acknowledge how we're feeling, then that leads us on a path in our brain to then be able to say, well, how can I move past this feeling? How can I build resilience and cultivate more strength based on this feeling, this experience and these feelings? I do want to move on to anger, though. And anger is the same way. Anger is another completely normal human experience and reaction that we feel sometimes. It's a red flag that tells us that something is going on that we need to pay attention to, whether it's that our boundaries have been crossed, or there's a situation that needs to change, or when we're being taken advantage of by somebody else. Anger is powerful, and it can tell us when there's something that we need to pay attention to, that we might need to advocate for change because we feel angry about what's happening. Anger can also be detrimental if it's not expressed appropriately, or if it's experienced frequently on a daily basis. So if you or somebody is having like frequent angry outbursts or frequent anger, it can be a sign of something more serious happening. And it can definitely still be a part of depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. So know that just because you're angry doesn't necessarily mean there's anything else going on. A lot of times anger is how we express, because it's more socially appropriate to be angry than to be sad or anxious. And so it still can be a part of depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder. And lastly on this list is burnout or compassion fatigue. So it's a state of emotional and physical and mental exhaustion, usually created by excessive stress or prolonged stress. And it occurs when we feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, unable to meet the constant demands that are placed on us. It's most often caused by problems with school and work, or even volunteering. We can experience burnout with something that we enjoy and that's great for us and great for the community, but we can become burnout. But it also can appear in different aspects of our life. So like parenting, caretaking, romantic relationships, we can get burnout on relationships as well. So burnout usually happens when a person is not in control of what the job that they're doing or how the job is done. And then there's also, you can have burnout when what you have to do is actually out of alignment with your values and your sense of self. If a person doesn't have the ability to tailor their responsibilities to match their sense of self and their values, or at least take a break once in a while to then refresh and get back to it, then they can face burnout, as well as the mountain of like other physical and mental health problems that can come along with it, like headaches and fatigue and even heartburn, and even gastrointestinal symptoms like nausea or vomiting or constipation or diarrhea. All of those things can come along with burnout as well. And with burnout, there's a risk of increased alcohol and drug and food misuse. So that would be like eating more than what you're physically wanting to eat or need to eat, or the opposite, restricting and compensating with food. So when to get extra support? So it could be a sign you need extra support when you notice you're having difficulty in your ability to perform your daily task, such as missing work, getting behind on schoolwork or housework, forgetting important dates, and difficulty caring for yourself or your children. Another sign is when you notice your relationships are becoming strained due to the symptoms, or it can also be that your loved one talks to you about what's going on and might even mention going to counseling or talking to a healthcare professional. Sometimes our closest family and friends notice that we're struggling before we notice, just because we're kind of in the woods and we can't see our way out. We don't even know that we're in the woods. But sometimes the outside perspective can really be beneficial, and just noticing when something might be going on. So if you also notice if your usual coping skills aren't working anymore, you could benefit from getting extra support to learn new coping skills, or to help you discover more about yourself or life that might be getting in the way of feeling better. So also just wanting extra support and wanting personal growth is enough to seek support. So I think that some of the people had mentioned in the chat box that what they know about mental health. And so these are some more reminders that you might need to hear. And that therapy is for everybody. Everybody needs support. And mental health services are becoming less stigmatized every day. We're seeing more songs about mental health and taking care of it in the popular culture, which is a really good sign that there's less stigma attached to it. I know that with Prince Harry disclosing that he received EMDR therapy, more people have been interested in EMDR because of it and treating the past traumas. And lastly, that your mental health matters just as much as your physical health, which is what someone else said in the chat box. So where you can get extra support. So therapy is a great one. Everyone can benefit from therapy. Everyone needs support at one time or another. And now more than ever, again, it's less stigmatized. But you can also receive counseling through your employee assistance program if you are still employed. So if you have employer-based insurance, you can ask your employer's human resources department about information on the employee assistance program, which is usually called the EAP. And EAPs usually offer a set amount of counseling sessions at no charge to you. Some EAPs offer 3 sessions, some EAPs offer 6 sessions, so it varies based on the health insurance plan. There's also warm lines, in Virginia has a warm line, the COPES warm line, and what I can do is I'll put that in the chat. So you have a copy of that phone number. And that warm line is 1-877-349-6428. But there's also warm lines through the National Alliance for Mental Illness. So it's also called NAMI. NAMI has a directory of warm lines, and then there's additional peer-run warm lines through Virginia as well. And then there's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and I'll put that in the chat as well. But that's 1-800-273-TALK. So it's a little bit easier to remember that one. But also each of the units across Virginia with the MRC typically have a mental health volunteer that you could reach out to and just kind of check in with them and talk with them about if you needed to debrief or briefly chat with just a mental health professional to say, like, I've got this going on. Do you think that, what I'm doing is going to be okay? Or do you feel like I need to get extra support? They might be able to give you a little bit of direction to say, well, it might sound like you need a little bit extra support. Also, there's support groups. So again, NAMI has support groups. They are usually like regional, but there's like a state NAMI in Virginia as well. There's also AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, if you're struggling with any alcohol or someone's struggling with alcohol. Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, which is for people who have a loved one who has a substance use issue, because sometimes our loved ones don't want to get treatment. They don't want to end their alcohol use or their drug use, and it can be really difficult as someone watching your loved one go through that. And so Al-Anon is a place for those family members to go to have support for their experiencing the loved one's substance use. And then there's also Grief Share. I know in our area there's a Grief Share group. It's actually located in North Carolina in Mount Airy. But Grief Share is like another national support group that you can Google and find a close support group to you, or even they might even have virtual now that we've all been through COVID. But Grief Share is more aimed towards those who have experienced a grief and loss. Other supports could be through your church or religious organization, and there's also peer supports in Virginia who have lived experience and are in recovery from mental health or a substance use challenge. So I have a couple of scenarios we'll run through. So the first scenario is that it's Joe. So Joe is a volunteer with the MRC, and he became a volunteer at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Joe has volunteered at COVID-19 testing sites, health department offices, long-term care facilities, and the vaccine pods. So in the past month, Joe has been feeling physically and mentally exhausted, with more cynicism about the community and the world, and just in general, feeling like nothing that Joe does really matters. So questions to kind of consider and put answers in the chat box would be, what may Joe be experiencing and what may be helpful for Joe, just based on your experience and what you can take from this. Because I do believe that anyone can be therapeutic, even if you're not a therapist. It can be helpful. Caregiver fatigue, burnout. Yep. Could benefit from counseling or talking to others. Yep. Compassion fatigue. So maybe some depression. It's overwhelmed. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that you guys are right on the target, that it is compassion fatigue and burnout. Yeah. he's done a lot. Like, he's tried to really help his community. Yeah, and that's exactly right. Taking a pause from volunteering to care for himself could be a really good option for him. And also, someone mentioned talking to others, talking to other volunteers. That can be a huge way to get support and just to normalize the feelings. I'm sure that we all probably talked to some of the other volunteers when we were volunteering in person, that, you know, how we were feeling. Like, sometimes we didn't get lunches, sometimes we didn't get snacks, sometimes we didn't get a break. We were just work, just to try to help in our communities with COVID-19. And that can take a toll on us. Even though we're doing the right thing, we're doing something that's beneficial and good for our communities. Sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves in the mix of that. Yeah, take a break and re-energize his body. Yeah. Talking to a loved one, self-nurturing, doing something that brings him joy. Yeah, I like that self-talk that someone mentioned, recognizing that any small contribution is still a contribution. Because sometimes we do, as people, if you're a volunteer, you're probably someone who cares a lot about your community, about others. You want to do something to help. And sometimes when we have that desire, which is a great internal desire to help others, we think that we have to solve all the problems in the world and all in the community. Like, us alone, we've got to do it all on our shoulders. And really, that kind of thinking, well intentioned, is very it's just too much. It's not possible for one person to do all those things alone. So I think it is changing that perspective and that mindset, and saying, I'm doing the best that I can. I'm doing as much as I can. And I can also rely on others to step up and help too, because there's more people out there like me to do that. So that way I can take a break. It doesn't have to always be me. I have to take care of myself. It's changing the way that we talk to ourselves, and changing our expectations of ourselves as well, and recognizing that we are human, we have human limits. Other people have mentioned that assessing their sleep, maintaining others with contact, going for a walk and exercise, religious consultation, so maybe talking to someone who's in your church or religious organization or synagogue. Remember why, someone put, remember why Joe decided to volunteer in the first place, and remember all the people that have been helped. Yes, like taking that step back and saying, like, I've done a lot and I've helped a lot of people. And that's pretty good. It's good enough. Someone else also mentioned, what's the one small things that he does have control over? Yes, identifying like what you have control over and what you don't have control over can be huge in combating burnout and compassion fatigue. Because again, we have human limits. We can't be expected to do it all. A seminar like this one, well, I hope so. That would be helpful. I hope it is helpful. Going outside and breathing fresh air, definitely. And then someone said a recliner and a cup of coffee. Yeah, relaxing. Like, just doing something that you feel is relaxing can be beneficial. And really incorporating that every single day is how we, like we said in the wellness slide, that's how we build our resilience, is if we do a little bit of it every day, we take care of ourselves. So great. You guys are wonderful. So we'll go to the next scenario. So scenario 2. So Kim is a volunteer with MRC, and she became a volunteer before the pandemic. She is a registered nurse who has assisted with COVID-19 vaccine pods in the past year. Kim has been providing care in the hospital setting outside of volunteering, and she's experienced personal and professional loss throughout the past year during COVID. In the past month, Kim has been having difficulty focusing, difficulties with sleep, or sporadic crying spells. Kim is still able to volunteer and work, as well as take care of herself and her family, but she suspects that she may benefit from extra support. So again, what might Kim be experiencing, and what may be helpful for Kim to deal with what she's been experiencing? Someone said depression. Trauma, grief. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it could be any one of those three things, or a combination of those three things. So depression, trauma, and grief and loss are all the common themes in all of the things that are going on in Kim's life. And someone said speaking to a therapist, going to counseling, time off for self-care, talking with the EAP with her job as a nurse, having time just to process the grief and everything she's been through. Definitely. Journaling, yes. Journaling can be really, really helpful with dealing with really stressful and traumatic events. So journaling, some people think that journaling is just mainly talking about the past and what's happened and kind of processing the past things. But you can also, you can do that if you feel like that's helpful. Some people kind of start to spiral from that, and they kind of get lost in the emotions. And other people can just be a way to vent and decompress. So it just depends on your reaction to journaling and if it's effective in that way. The other people who kind of spiral when they're doing journaling about the past, it can be more helpful to think about a future self journal. So thinking about who you want to be and how you want to be able to handle things in 5 years from now. So what does future you do to handle things? What kind of characteristics does future you have in 5 years? Is future you more confident, more patient, more compassionate and kind? So journaling can be helped use it that way too, rather than just going to the past if it's too upsetting or overwhelming to really go there. But there's also a lot of different journal prompts. You can type journal prompts for anxiety or journal prompts for confidence in Google, and you'll get a lot of different things that could be helpful, and you can kind of experiment to see what one best works for you. Some of other people had said talking to a close friend about what she's going through. Yeah, like I said before, you don't have to be a therapist to be therapeutic. Some of our best friends or family members are extremely therapeutic because they know us so well, and it's so beneficial to have that person in our lives. We just want to make sure we're not using our friends as therapists, though. Friendships are supposed to be reciprocal. So making sure that when they give you support, but you also give them support too, is what makes a healthy friendship. Having a mantra or a song list, yes, it can be completely helpful if you can find some good sayings that really feel true to you inside. Those mantras can really be effective in managing stress. And then songs, there's specific songs that if you need extra confidence or if you need support, there's a lot of different variety of music out there that can be really helpful in providing that to you. And prayer, yes, people's spiritual beliefs are incredibly important. If she has spiritual beliefs and does practice prayer, or has practiced prayer in the past, and incorporating those again can be very helpful. Someone says nature, yes, great, wonderful ideas. Yeah, nature is healing. There's actually different types of therapies that you can use in nature, like ecotherapy or even forest bathing. So there's a lot of different things that we can find therapeutic with nature. Human touch. So yeah, touch is one of our love languages of how we experience support and love. So you have someone that can give you a hug, like a 5-second or a 10-second hug. It can be really beneficial to then stimulate some of it's called oxytocin, that so the love kind of cuddle hormone that we get when we get a hug. It can stimulate that and make us feel a little bit better. Someone says learning healthy boundaries can be effective. Definitely. Boundaries can help to set, like, yes, I can do more volunteering, or no, I need to take a break for a little bit. If we have really kind of loose boundaries, then we'll be more likely to say yes, even though it might be a time when we need to be saying no and having more rigid boundaries. Other people have said their animals have been really therapeutic and helpful, and they are, definitely. There's research to show that our animals, like dogs and cats and even miniature horses and other animals, can be really helpful and therapeutic. Okay. All right, so we'll keep on moving on. Someone said that they've planted a cherry tree recently. Yes, gardening. Gardening does have a great effects for our mental health. Putting your, like walking barefoot on the grass can also help you to be more grounded, especially on a warm, sunny day. You can go out and walk barefoot on the grass or the sand, and just really helps you to feel like connected to nature and in the present moment, in here and now. Okay, so move on. So coping skills. So we've talked about a lot of coping skills just in these two scenarios, but I do have some other ones I want to share. But if you can think about coping skills and apply those coping skills to the wellness needs that we talked about early. So there's 8 of those wellness needs. Think about how each of the coping skills that you might have right now fit into those categories. So I'll kind of briefly go over, and as I'm talking, feel free to write any current coping skills that we haven't already mentioned in the chat, because I feel like, though, as we're doing this, a lot of people are probably getting a lot of great ideas of what works for somebody else. So that is beneficial to be like, if it works for them as a coping skill, it could be something that works for me as a coping skill too. So if you find something that, oh, you don't see the coping skills slide. It should say coping skills, and it just says, what are your current coping skills right now?
We don't see it.
Oh, you don't? I wonder why. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me try and fix that. Yeah, it's like it got stuck, didn't it?
I think so.
I'm sorry. I did not realize that. Okay, is that better?
No.
No? Oh my goodness. Ah. So it says that it's sharing. I'm gonna stop the sharing for just a second and I'll restart it. And let me see if that works. Has it been going along for the rest of the?
Yes, it's been fine.
Okay, great. I wonder why I did that. That's so unusual.
Jackie said, we're watching you cope with your technical problems.
Yeah,
so you're showing us. We see it now. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's like I said, like anything can happen in life. We just kind of have to find a way to keep going, right? So my technology problems are a good example of that. So thank you guys for keep writing these coping skills. But yeah, so if you've seen something that you feel like it could be helpful, that you're interested in trying, I really would encourage you having like making a list, so that way you can try these in the future. Okay. I'm gonna kind of touch on each of the 8 wellness needs that we have and how they kind of fit. So we have the emotional needs that we need to get met. So I know we'd rather sometimes not have these emotional needs, but we all do. We're all human. And having your emotional needs met through being mindful of your feelings, practicing relaxation techniques, having healthy boundaries, and managing stress contributes to your overall resiliency. So some examples of coping skills that would touch on those emotional needs would just be practicing naming how you feel without judgment of those emotions. So sometimes we'll say, like, I feel sad. I am a bad person for feeling sad, or I shouldn't be feeling sad. That's kind of that, we can name it, but we also need to let go of the judgment. I feel sad, and most people in the situation probably would feel sad. If I did a poll, I'm guessing that over 50% would probably feel sad if they experienced the same thing that I experienced. So really, like, naming the feelings, normalizing the feelings, that can help us to meet our emotional needs. And then also, like, adopting like a mindset of challenge accepted. So when obstacles occur, view your obstacles and as challenges as growth opportunities. So just like with my struggling with this technology, It's still a growth opportunity. I'm still learning in the process. I'm still getting better at the technology as I go. And I can use that as a challenge accepted mindset to be like, I can still handle this. And if I can handle this, I can handle the next thing that might be thrown at me. Another way to meet your emotional needs is actually scheduling time alone, because sometimes we forget to do that, especially with things getting back to normal in our lives. We really need to still allow us some time to spend alone, to do our coping skills, to reflect on how we're feeling, to check in with our mental health. So scheduling that alone time. And then touching on social and social needs. So healthy relationships and social interactions are fundamental needs of humans. So we learned that in the past year too, that we all have social needs that didn't get met during the pandemic because of our lockdown and our safety measures. So when we find a lot of our social connections and our social needs being met through our community, through meeting new people, having social time with friends and families. So examples could be scheduling coffee or lunch with a friend, calling or texting a friend at least once a week, schedule a date with your significant other to see a movie or have dinner, or even planning like a family game night meets our social needs. Spiritual needs can be really encompassed through your personal beliefs and values and morals. If you practice a religion, you may find your spiritual needs met through your religious practices. So if you're someone who doesn't practice any religion and is not religious, you may find your spiritual needs met in other ways. So spirituality is just a way of appreciating life and finding something bigger than yourself and making meaning and finding purpose in your existence. So to practice that, you can write down what your personal beliefs and values and morals are, even if you aren't really quite sure what those are yet. Spend time exploring what these may be for you. Take an inventory about how your current actions align or don't align with your personal beliefs or values or morals. When our actions don't align with our beliefs, our values and morals, you're going to have when they don't, you're going to have cognitive dissonance. So that's where what we think and what we value is in opposition of what we're actually doing. And that can set us up for more like irritability and anger and sadness. But when we have our actions aligned with our personal values, beliefs, and morals, we really do cultivate more resiliency, because we then have cognitive, it's like it's coming together with what we believe and what we're doing comes together, and it makes us feel a lot better. Also, like someone else said in the chat, finding that being in nature really brings a sense of awe and wonder, and that awe and wonder of something bigger than us can be found in nature. If you need to go someplace to feel small, definitely climb a mountain, go for a hike, those types of things where you're seeing like, wow, it's such a different perspective that I normally see at the bottom of the mountain, especially in Southwest Virginia, where we have a lot of mountains to hike to the top of. You can meet your intellectual needs by reading or taking a class or a workshop, learning about something new, attending or watching a play or a musical, doing puzzles or games, or just getting involved with groups or organizations, like joining a book club, or learning how to grow a vegetable garden, completing like a Sudoku or a crossword puzzle. Learning a new language. For example, I don't know if anyone does Duolingo. That's a free app that you can learn a different language. It'll stimulate your intellectual needs. Or just taking like a simple task of, I'm just going to read 10 minutes every day. Even if I can't get through a full book, I'm going to try and read just 10 minutes a day. Physical needs. So lots of different ways to meet our physical needs through like healthy nutrition, physical activity, getting enough sleep, refraining from or reducing your alcohol or tobacco or other drug intake, taking medications as prescribed, getting in the routine of a physical health checkup and dental cleanings. Those are all really important in meeting our physical needs. But you could also meet it through scheduling a goal to just eat 2 or 3 vegetables a day, or 2 fruits a day, or 2 of each a day. Just something simple like that can help you to meet some of your physical needs. Or going for a walk after dinner each night, planning a hike on the weekend, going to bed an hour early. Those are all ways to help you to meet your physical needs. So you're getting the sleep that your body needs, you're getting the nutrition your body needs, and you're getting the movement that your body needs. To meet your environmental needs, so you really need to have, and you feel better when you have a clean environment and access to clean air, healthy food, and clean water. So ways that you can kind of cultivate that environmental need being met is also having like pleasant scents, relaxing spaces. They help us to feel better. So an example of what you can do to meet your environmental needs is just spend 15 minutes every day outside in the sunlight, visiting a state or a national park, organizing your home or office space. Some of us feel very stressed out and anxious and overwhelmed when our spaces are cluttered or disorganized. Other people, it works just fine. So it just kind of depends on the type of person that you are and what works for you. But you can also diffuse like oils that you find pleasant. So like lavender or lemon, just some like a pleasant smell that you like if you tolerate scents well. Some people don't. Everyone's different. Meeting your occupational needs. So if you want to meet those needs, you need to make sure that you have a healthy work-life balance. So, and making sure that you're having healthy work relationships too. So that those are both really important in having your occupational needs met. So some activities to consider in meeting those needs would be journaling about your work, whether it's paid or volunteering. If it fits your values and provides you with a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. Discuss how to keep your communication open with others at your work or where you're volunteering, and model healthy communication. You can also take an inventory of just what's your current work-life balance. And if you feel like it's off in one way or another, consider just making adjustments and if you do feel like there's an imbalance. Also, one of the last one of the needs of the final 8 is financial needs. So if you're feeling uncertain about your financial situation, it can really increase your stress significantly. It's actually one of the number one things that couples will argue about is finances. So if you are in a relationship and financial stress is usually one of the biggest sources of conflict, there's a lot more arguments around it. Feeling more in control of your finances can help you to decrease and manage any stress related to finances. So the activities that could be beneficial with this need would just be evaluate whether your current work is meeting your needs. And if not, write down what ways you would want to change it. Some of those ways would be like, I want to earn like X number of dollars, but yeah, maybe that is realistic and maybe it's not realistic. You'll have to kind of decide on if that's something that is doable or if it's something that's going to be more of a long-term goal. Balance your checkbook at least once a week. Some people don't realize that not knowing really stresses us out, that uncertainty. So when we do take time to balance our checkbooks and know like what our budget is, whether it's a weekly budget or creating a monthly budget, knowing what that budget is and staying within it can reduce our anxiety and make us feel like we are in control of our finances. And then also just trying to figure out a way to put some money into savings can be helpful. And then make a list of your debt and making a plan on how you're going to slowly pay that down, or schedule an appointment with a financial planner. So it takes time and trying new activities and practice in order to build resilience. But remember, everybody has the capacity to build resilience. So I'm just going to kind of browse the chat just to make sure we've got lots of great ideas in here. So gratitude was another thing that someone mentioned. Yes, being thankful can be really helpful. One of the things some people apologize a lot. And so one of the things that you can do if someone's over apologizing is practice saying thank you. So thank you for waiting for me if you're late, or thank you for helping me with this. Instead of like, I'm so sorry, I need help. I'm so sorry, I'm late. No, thank you. Thank you so much for waiting, and thank you for helping me with it. It changes the way that we're perceived, and it changes the way that we perceive ourselves as well. Okay, so this is the part that I was most excited about. So I want to practice some of these coping skills. So I'm going to close the chat so that way I don't get distracted by that. And I want everyone to just kind of, we're going to practice it together. You can keep your cameras off. You don't have to turn them on. But the first one that we'll practice is mindfulness meditation. So mindfulness meditation is just a type of coping skill to help you be in the present moment. It's a lot more focusing on our breath. So we'll do this together. And I just kind of, on the right side of the screen, put like just kind of bullet points, but I'm going to do a different script from that. So you don't need to worry about reading what's on the screen. You don't need to worry about remembering it. All you do, I want you to do is first just find like a relaxing, comfortable position and wherever you might be. And hopefully it's somewhat quiet where you're at, but I understand if it's not, but you can still practice this even if it's a loud environment, if you have kids running around. So first, I want you to begin to get in a comfortable seated position. Feel rooted and safe and comfortable throughout your seat. And once you're settled, close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. And I want you to take a deep breath through your nose and then out through your mouth. So I want you to inhale for a count of 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And try to keep your breathing at this really slow, deep pace. As you inhale, imagine that you're breathing in calmness and peace and strength. And as you exhale, imagine that you're breathing out all your anxiety, stress, and worry. There's nothing for you to worry about right now in this present moment. All there is to do in this present moment is breathe. Feel your anxiety slip away with each exhale. If your mind begins to drift to feelings of worry, just be mindful. Just notice it without judgment. And then bring your attention back to your breath. As you inhale, you can think you are strong and you can handle anything that life throws at you. And just notice how calm you feel as you sit and breathe. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and take this feeling of relaxation with you. And so if you want to, if you're back with us and out of the breathing and being mindful of that, if you feel comfortable, if you want to write in the chat how that was or what you noticed in those moments, you can definitely do so. But if you are a more private person and just want to note that for yourself, I'm hoping that someone found that breathing and taking that time and breathing in peace and strength was helpful. And then breathing out the stress and anxiety was also helpful. Good. I'm glad to hear that you're feeling peaceful and lighter and relaxing. Feeling centered. And some people are saying they might not feel anything, and that's completely fine. There's no expectations with meditation or mindfulness or deep breathing. It's the act of just giving our bodies that breath that can be really helpful. And some people will find that they're like, well, I'm not sure if this is for me. I think that in our culture, we're not really taught that taking these deep breaths and focusing on just how our body feels in the moment, we're not used to it. And so it can sometimes take some practice to get used to it. Okay. Well, we'll go on to the next one. So we're going to put a number of these before we're done. So the next one is a body scan. So this one's a little bit different than the mindfulness meditation. It is still a different form of meditation, but it's more bringing more awareness to your body. And we're just going to be aware. We're not going to be tensing or relaxing. That's actually called progressive muscle relaxation. If you've done that before and you would prefer to do that instead of this, you can definitely do that. Also, if you feel like that being is too much in your body is overwhelming, it can be helpful to keep your eyes open, so you're not completely in your body. You still have that visual experience of being seated where you are, because sometimes it can feel a little bit overwhelming if you're not used to having your full awareness on your body and really nothing else. So we'll do this body scan really quickly. So again, get in a comfortable seated position. And again, you can keep your eyes closed if you'd like, or if you want to keep them open, that's fine too, whichever is comfortable. And just begin by bringing an awareness to your body. Notice where your body is seated, and just feel the weight of your body on the chair or on the floor. Take a few deep breaths as you're becoming aware. As you take a deep breath, bring more oxygen, enlivening the body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. If your feet are seated on the floor, just notice how your feet feel on the floor. Notice the sensation of your feet touching the floor, the weight and pressure, maybe even heat of your feet. And going from your feet, notice your legs against the chair or place where you're sitting down. Notice the pressure, the pulsing, the heaviness or lightness. Notice your back against the chair. See if you can pay attention to the muscles that you feel with your back against the chair, supporting you sitting up. And then bring your attention to your stomach. Notice if your stomach is tense or tight. And if it is, let it soften. Take a deep breath as it softens. Next, bring your attention to your hands. Are they tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften and let go of tension. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Go all the way up to your shoulders and let your shoulders be soft. And from there, go to your neck and your throat and let them be soft and relax. Soften your jaw. You can let your mouth be open. Let go of the tension in your facial muscles. Be soft. And then bring your awareness to the top of your head. And just notice how your hair even feels. And then notice your whole body present. From the top of your head all the way down to your feet, touching the floor. Take one more deep breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take a breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And if you'd like, you can, again, put what you experienced in the chat box or jot it down for yourself. But there's no supposed to's or expectations with meditation. For some people, it can feel like this is a little bit easier of a meditation to do than the first one. That you're giving your brain something to really think about while going through your whole body instead of just focusing on your breath. You're breathing and putting your brain to work by thinking about different parts of your body. Someone mentioned that they have back pain. Continuing to practice this, there is some evidence from research that shows that meditation and deep breathing can be helpful. And there's also the radical acceptance, like saying, I fully accept that I have this pain. I'm not going to avoid it. It's nothing to be afraid of. I've handled it now, and I'm handling it in the future, and I've handled it in the past. It can be some helpful things to tell ourselves when we're doing these relaxation, especially if we have physical pain or chronic medical conditions. Yeah, a lot of people want to take naps after doing these things, so that's completely normal. And sometimes if you're having a hard time falling asleep, it can be a really good idea to do this laying down in bed. And sometimes you won't make it through very long before you are asleep, and you can help stop racing thoughts or anxiety that might be happening when you're trying to fall asleep by doing this. So we'll practice the next one. This one's, again, a little bit different. Instead of focusing on our bodies, we're going to be focusing on sending love to ourselves, loving kindness to ourselves, and sending it out to the community and then to the world. So loving kindness is, again, it's just another meditation practice. And we'll jump into this one as well, and we'll check in at the end of it too to see how people are doing and what they noticed. So again, just take a note of being present in your body and where you are in your environment. And just notice your breath and how your body accommodates each breath in and then out. And this time, turn your focus to your heart. Feel or imagine your beating heart with gratitude and warmth. And then I want you to call to mind a person or even a pet of the past or present whose steady love was unconditional and accepting of you. And they touch your heart in a special way when you think of them. So allow yourself to experience their loving kindness as if they were right near you and happy for your presence and grateful for just who you are. Notice how this image eases your body and your mind. And just relax into this warm connection, keeping it simple. Allow any thoughts to arise and evaporate, and then just come back to your heart and your breathing. And take your time. Now put this loving kindness and warmth that you are receiving into words. So it can be helpful that you can imagine these kind thoughts are what the person or even the animal that you've called to mind wants for you. And picture that they are wishing them with you. And you can put your hand on your heart if it feels comfortable and say, may I feel safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. And repeat these wishes at least 3 times out loud or in your mind and savor them. Take your time. Feel their ability to warm and open the heart. Then next, bring to mind someone who means a lot to you. Someone whose presence you can relax and be fully appreciated for who you are. Feel the goodness of this connection and feel the mutual gratitude. As you offer your well wishes, imagine that this person is touched by them and experiences happiness and peace. Say to them, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy. And finally, include as many people and animals as you can in your wishes. Whether the people are happy or sad, loved or neglected, in good health or in poor health, in all stages of life, without making a particular effort to envision them separately. Just simply maintain awareness of the presence of all of these beings who share your planet and send them your wishes for a sincere and tender heart. May we all be safe. May we all be healthy. May we all be happy. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. And again, you can put your experience if you want to share in the chat box or just note it down for yourself. Are you all able to see the loving kindness slide, or is it showing or is it not showing? Because I'm going to move on to the next slide soon. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So the next slide should say, minding your thoughts. Okay. So your thoughts are powerful, as we've kind of experienced with these 3 meditation exercises. What we say to ourselves has a really big impact on how we feel inside. So just these moments of saying, like, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I be safe, those things have an impact on how we feel. And so your thoughts are powerful and they impact how you feel, whether it's in these practices or in your daily life. A lot of times when we're going through our daily life, we don't question what we're saying to ourselves. We just accept it as fact. So if we're saying to ourselves when we make a mistake automatically, like, I'm a bad person, I shouldn't have done that, then those thoughts have an effect on how we feel. So by thinking about how you're thinking, it's actually called metacognition. So if we can spend more time in being intentional in how we talk to ourselves and how we think about ourselves and our actions, then it can have an effect on us positively with our feelings. So practicing these affirming thoughts can be really helpful. So some helpful thoughts can be, I'm doing the best I can, I'm proud of myself, I'm good enough, and I'm deserving of rest and love. So if you can jot down other positive thoughts or thoughts that are helpful to you, that can be a way to practice these in your daily life, and that can be helpful. All right, so I'm just going to do a quick summary. We don't have much time left. It's flown by. So it's flown by for me, so I hope that it's flown by for you. But in summary, our wellness is so much more than just our physical and mental health. It incorporates all of those needs that we mentioned, those 8 dimensions. Everyone has mental health, and everyone needs support in their life. We've kind of seen that everyone has really been affected by this pandemic, and everyone is starting to become more aware of mental health and how important it is. Just like everyone has physical health, everyone has mental health as well. And sometimes anxiety and depression can be responses, a normal response, in abnormal situations. So when we have a lot of different things on our plate that are normal responses, might be anxiety and depression, and we have to kind of take a step back and say, let me look at this and see if this is something that most people would feel in the situation. And generally, that's usually the case. That most people would be angry when our needs aren't considered. Most people would be angry when our boundaries are crossed. Most people would be anxious if the world is full of uncertainty during a global pandemic. So it's an abnormal situation that we're having normal responses for. And then your coping skills toolbox should contain a variety of different tools. So hopefully you've been able to, if you've gained nothing else today, you've got to hear from other people and what they do as for coping skills and what's helpful for them. And you can take some of that from what's been helpful for others and apply that to yourself, or even apply the different things that we've talked about. An action item. So what I would like you to do, what can you incorporate from this, what you learned today, either from me or from others in this group, because someone can be therapeutic without being a therapist. So write down 1 to 3 things to add to your daily life. Put it in your schedule, put it in your planner, set an alarm, post reminders around your home. Sometimes the best place to put a reminder is on your bathroom mirror. And then just remind yourself why you're adding this change, and giving yourself encouragement and support. I'm proud of myself for adding this to my routine. The more that I add these healthy things into my life, the more resiliency that I'll build, and I'll be able to handle future stresses that I can't see, don't know if they're going to happen yet, but I'm going to be able to handle them better because I've incorporated this healthy practice in my life. And then a quote. So the mind is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets and the more it can expand. So making sure that you're practicing it, it's going to, all these things that we talked about today, they'll strengthen that muscle of your mind, and you'll get stronger and more capable of being resilient the more that you practice these things. And then thank you. You guys have done amazing things this past year, and I'm happy to be a part of this group, happy to be a part of the MRC and be a volunteer. I really just appreciate you all taking time out of your day, and I really do hope that this was helpful and beneficial for you too. At least one thing. That's all